Okay, welcome to our basic training course, our next module in the training circuit. We're going to talk about entry and warm-up. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do. That'll give you access to all the videos, and I certainly don't mind a like button or any comments if you want to add those. All right, step 2, entry and warm-up. So now we're going to get some detail here, and we're going to start talking about key word tracks. And I'm going to repeat the word tracks a couple of times for you when we get to them throughout these next modules, because these are important. I want you to think of the word tracks, and we're going to ask you to memorize them, as hinges on a door. What they do, the most important thing, as I said in orientation, is that you have a consistent demonstration, a consistent plan when you go into the home. You're doing the same show every house you go to. You don't change the show for who you're in front of. You don't change what you do. You're doing the same show. And the word tracks give you a hinge, a body to hang that consistency on, because it helps you transition from one part to the next. And in between there, you can kind of do your own little personality and say it in your own way, but you're still, whatever you say and whatever your personality, you're doing it the same way each time. Now, your managers, especially when we talk about things like the agenda and the next steps coming up, or maybe the pre-close, might have a couple of options for you. There's a couple of different ways you can ask the pre-close, and some work better for one personality than the other. I'm not saying you have to memorize this one pre-close word for word. What I'm saying is you need to have a pre-close memorized word for word. And when asked to give your pre-close, you can put it right out. I'm not saying you have to have the agenda memorized word for word. I'm telling you, you need to have an agenda memorized word for word. The exteriors agenda might be a little bit different than the bathroom or the kitchen agenda. That's fine. If you're doing multiple products, you might have come up with an agenda that works for all of them. But the key is you're doing the same agenda every time you go into the home. That's the key. So let's talk about entry. So we talked about in the last video about having everything ready before we pull up to the house, pulling up in front, ready to go, stepping out with some snap to our step, and headed to the door. I use a backpack for my briefcase. You can use a satchel backpack, old traditional briefcase, whatever works for you. We're not going to take samples with us when we first go to the door. Old school, back in the day of telemarketing appointments, you carried everything up all at once. It looked like a pack horse coming to the door because you didn't want to go back out to your car. Nowadays, since people are calling us, these are considered warm leads. We don't want to overwhelm them at the door. So it's okay to go back and get your samples. We just want to have your briefcase. You've got your iPad, a tape measure, you got a clipboard to take some notes, some forms that you're going to use first into the demo, like your survey and that kind of thing. But we're not trying to carry everything all at once. When I stroll to the door, I'm going to go there with snap, shoulders back, head up. I'm going to go to the door, and I'm not going to ring the doorbell. They called us, and they know what time we're coming. You know who you're going to disturb with the doorbell? Pets and sleeping children. If they expected you at 2 o'clock, guess what they did with the small children? They gave them lunch and put them down for a nap because you're coming. Don't wake the child up. Plus, a third of the doorbells in the United States don't work, and half of the ones that work, you can't hear them anyway. So you don't even know if it's working. What I want you to do, if the storm door is open, I want you to open that storm door and firmly knock on the door. Get a sound that don't sound like the police, but a nice resounding knock that'll carry. If the storm door is latched, don't knock on the storm door. It's just going to rattle. They're not going to hear it. Go to the frame of the door, the face frame, that wood framework, and knock on that. That'll carry nicely through the house. If they got vinyl siding, that's not going to carry. Knock on the face of the door frame then as well. Knock a couple of times. If that doesn't work, then by all means, ring the doorbell. If nobody answers and it's a summer day or it's a nice day outside, sun shining, don't hesitate to walk around the back of the house and see if somebody's in the backyard or on the back deck. Now, how do I do that without looking like a creeper with the neighbors? Because I'm calling out, hey, Anybody here? Harold with Remodel USA. Anybody home? And I'm calling out as I walk around so a neighbor outside or somebody inside can see that I'm not creeping the house. I'm just looking for the person who my appointment's with. Remember what I said in orientation about reasons to call your manager. What was the first reason? No one's at home. So if you get to the door and no one's answering, you're going to call your manager, let them know what appointment you're on and that no one's answering the door. And you'll be surprised how many times when marketing or your manager calls real quick, the person opens the door while you're still on hold. They were putting laundry in the washing machine downstairs, didn't hear you. They were running the vacuum cleaner, didn't hear you. They were upstairs at the back of the house, didn't hear you. So you're always going to call if no one's at home. If the manager can't get an answer on the phone, no one's home, we're going to wait 40 to 45 minutes before we leave. People get held up. They get held in traffic. They plan too tightly. All the things you're not going to do with your leads because you're going to get to the neighborhood early. But that's what people do is they plan too tightly or they get behind. So we're going to wait 40 to 45 minutes, and then before we leave the scene, we're going to let our manager know, hey, my 1 o'clock never showed. I knocked on the door one more time. It's 1:40, so I want to let you know I'm going. And let your manager know you're leaving the scene. So when I make entry, I've gotten to the house, pep to my step, walked up, knocked on the door. I got my backpack, looking sharp, shoulders back, and I'm ready for him to open the door. I'm a pretty big guy. So I will step back and step down that first step on the porch so it drops my height a little bit. So if I have the 4'11" widow lady open the door, I'm not towering over her. I'm also not going to be squared up at the door like a linebacker ready to charge through. I'm going to have that foot back, drop my height. I'm going to be a little sideways, open posture, got my backpack, and I'm ready for him to open the door. And I'm going to use the same greeting I've used for over 30 years. I'm going to say their name twice before I say my name for the first time. I'm going to be on a first name basis. You must be on a first name basis with your appointment in order to be able to close. Your close will be half what it could be if you're calling them Mr. or Mrs. 2.5 to 3 hours later when you're in the close. I'm telling you, it doesn't help. Now, if you're younger and you don't feel comfortable calling them with first name, you can call them Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones when they answer the door. But within a few minutes of getting into the house, you're going to need to look at them and go, Mr. Jones, what was your first name? William? Do you mind if I call you William? I'm Harold. Do you mind if I call you William? He'll be fine with it. Get on a first name basis. You must make that happen. However, if I had my hair grown out, you could see I have what's called gray hair credibility. I'm a little older. I hit them with their first name at the door. No problem. We're peers. So I don't Mr. or Mrs. anybody. They open the door and I go, John, I'm Harold with Remodel USA, here for our 10 o'clock appointment. I appreciate you having us out here. Can I come in? And then I assume the entry and I step towards the door. Let me say it again. Mary, I'm Harold with Remodel USA, here for our 2 o'clock appointment. Thank you for having us out. Do you mind if I come in? One more time. Their name twice, my name once. Bob, I'm Harold with Remodel USA. I'm here for our 5 o'clock appointment. I appreciate you having us out. Do you mind if I come in? And I assume the entry. The exact same word tracks every time. Now, about 25% of the time, you're going to get resistance at the door. And you know why? Because they're scared of you. They're scared of you because their anxiety has gone up. They made this appointment a few days ago, and oh my goodness, a stranger's coming about this shower, and they probably aren't a great company, and they just want my money, and they probably got crappy stuff, and I really don't want somebody in my house, and oh, why did I make this appointment? Or they really, really want that kitchen remodel, or they really want their windows or need their roof done, and they're afraid of being taken advantage of. The very fact that they want it really badly makes them feel vulnerable to being taken advantage of. And you know what vulnerable people do? They push you away. They put resistance. They put barriers in your way because they want to set you straight so you know they're not vulnerable. So if somebody meets you at the door and says, listen, we don't have a lot of time to do this appointment, or they go, listen, we called and canceled, and they didn't call and cancel, we'd have let you know. We got plenty of leads. We'd have sent you to somebody else. They weren't respectful enough to actually call and cancel. Now they're like, oh my gosh, here they are. I don't know what else to say. So they tell you they called to cancel. Believe me, they didn't. We called to cancel this appointment. I can't believe they didn't tell you. Or they look at you and go, oh my gosh, we've changed our mind. We're not doing this till next year. There's no point in going through it. No matter what they say, if they don't let me in, no matter what form the resistance takes when I'm at the door and I don't get a smooth entry, I use the same word tracks every time. And you're going to want to have these down for when you come for training next week in the classroom, because role play is all we do. So here's the word track. They say, I canceled. They say, we're not doing it till next year. They say, we don't have a lot of time. They say, we just can't do this today. And I say, I hear you. Most people I talk to are only in the planning and designing stage anyway. Is that where you're at? Listen, I made a special trip out here. The information I have to cover doesn't take very long. Why don't I come in, take a quick look at your windows, your bathroom, your kitchen, answer some questions for you, and you'll know whether this is something you even want to do down the road. When you get to the home, the homeowner only wants two things from you. Two things, nothing else. Can anybody tell me what the first thing is they want from you? If you said the price, you're right. The first thing they want from you is they want to know how much it is. And you know what the second thing they want from you? They want you to leave, because the price was all they wanted. So now they want you to go. So we're going to give them a word track at the door that appeases everything they want. They want the price. I'm going to answer some questions. I'm not going to take a lot of time. It doesn't take very long. I'm going to acknowledge no pressure. The whole key with a great sales presentation is you wait to bring up the words now and today until you're ready to bring them up. Till you've gathered all the information that you need from the homeowner to make a sale. As soon as you start talking about buying today or buying now, you risk triggering fight or flight in your homeowner. And if you trigger resistance in fight or flight, they're going to start lying to you. They're going to start giving you misinformation. They're going to start fighting you to change the conditions. So if somebody gives me any resistance at the door, all I want to do is give them a word track that, one, lets me continue with the demo I'm going to do, and two, makes them feel comfortable with me doing what I want to do. Oh, yeah, I want that from you, salesperson. What you just said is exactly what I'm looking for. Come on in. And I'm not going to fight objections, because I'm going to kick the can down the road. And I'm not going to butt heads. And I'm not going to buy into they've only got 45 minutes. Listen, if they've only got 45 minutes, that objection does not affect the next 10 minutes. It doesn't affect the next 10 minutes 4 times in a row. So I'm not dealing with that objection till I get to that point. We've only got 45 minutes. Great. I'll give you the short version. Not a problem. Doesn't take very long to cover what I've got anyway. And I don't change anything about my demonstration. I do exactly what I'm going to do, and you'll be amazed when the 45 minutes gets there that there was no objection. See, they've had people out before. They've had goofballs and drunks and people that bored them and people they didn't like and people that disrespected them. So they're going to set a game plan, a lot of them, to get you out of the house if you're like that person. So that 45 minutes isn't real. They're just waiting to check you out. And once they start feeling comfortable and you move out of being a suspect into prospect, like, yeah, we want to continue doing this. And so they don't even bring the objection up. And on the rare occasion that at 45 minutes they really have to go somewhere, that's just real life. There is no game plan I can give you that works 100% of the time. But I can give you a game plan of percentages that works the most time. And in most cases, the highest percentage of cases, you just ignore this objection about having to go somewhere. And when you get to that time frame, A lot of times it just falls to the wayside and never comes up. Or she picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, Mom, I'm with the shower guy. I'll help you hang those drapes tomorrow." It wasn't a real appointment. She could have made it real, but it wasn't a real appointment. I'm going to give you a hint, one of many hints I'll give you over the next several days. If more than once a month you have somebody tell you they've got to go somewhere half through your demo and you have what's called a broken demo, that means you're boring. Now, you might get 2 in 1 month, but that means you don't get any the next month. It shouldn't happen more than about once a month by the numbers. Once a month, legitimately, something comes up, the demo breaks halfway through it or a third of the way through it, and you have to leave when they do. They get called into work. A child gets sick at school. Something unexpected happens. They forgot something, get a phone call, have to go do it. Once a month. But if it's happening to you once a week, or heaven forbid, twice a week, you're boring. That's you, not them, and the appointment was not real. That was you being boring. So let's go back to that word track. So my entry word track was John. John, I'm Harold with Remodel USA. Here for our 10 o'clock appointment. Appreciate you having us out today. You mind if I come in and I start walking towards the door? If I get any resistance, well, we're probably not going to do this next year. Oh, well, most of the people I talk to are just in the planning and designing stage anyway. Is that where you're at? Always ask if that's where they're at. It gives them a chance to agree with you, and that makes them feel like you get it. You're now hearing that, yeah, that's all I am in the planning and designing stage. So you want them to answer that. Is that where you're at? Listen, I made a special trip out here. We're not saying that so they care about us. We're saying that so they know it's not an everyday event for me to get to their home. I don't want you to talk about I traveled a long way. They don't care how far you came. But you can say you made a special trip so they know it's not going to happen every day. I made a special trip out to be here. The information I have to cover doesn't take very long. Why don't I come in, take a quick look at your bathroom, kitchen, windows, doors, roof. I'll answer some questions for you, and you'll know if this is something that even works for you down the road. How's that sound? One more time. Exactly the same way. I hear you, John. Always agree. I hear you. I understand. Just letting them know that you're listening. I understand. Most people I talk to are just in the planning and designing stage anyway. Is that where you're at? I hear you. Well, I made a special trip out to be here. The information I have to cover doesn't take long at all. Why don't we take a quick look at your blank? I'll answer any questions you have, and then you'll know if you even want to do this down the road and pursue it. Sound good? That right there will diffuse almost any opportunity and give you a chance to get through the door. One more time. I understand, most of the people I talk to are just in the planning and designing stage anyway. Is that where you're at? I made a special trip out to be here, and the information I have to cover doesn't take very long. Why don't we take a quick look at your kitchen, bathroom, roof, windows, doors. I'll answer any questions you have, and you'll know if this is something you even want to do down the road. Sound good? I want you to pick up on a clue that I'm going to talk about quite a bit. The most powerful tool you have in a house is your voice. And as you learn these word tracks, you'll tend to start speaking faster because you've gotten good at them. Now you got them down. You're not stumbling over them. Your job is to have people understand the message you're giving. It's not about you spitting it out. It's about how well you get them to understand it. Learn to put pauses in your speech. Learn to say things as simply as you can. If you dress them up with fancy words, you make it harder to comprehend them. Make it simple. Talk with pauses. I'm talking right now in what I call sound bites, little chunks of conversation that allow you, who have never heard this before, to understand it the best, to absorb more of it. That's your job, to communicate in a way where the person in front of you can absorb your message. I don't care if you know the message. Can you communicate the message? And you do that by talking a little slower, putting pauses in it between chunks of conversation so they can take it in and analyze it. And you don't dress it up with a bunch of extra fancy big words. Stop doing that. So now you've gotten in the house. It's now time for warm-up. A perfect warm-up is a nice 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes of just getting to know the person. I'll give you a little hint. One of the easiest ways to change the dynamic in the house is get your butt in a seat. Walk in the door. If you can see the kitchen, you can, hey, we're going to the kitchen, just start walking towards it. But if you can't see the kitchen and there's a den or a living room, just go, we're sitting over here, and start walking towards it. Get seated. Even if all I do is sit down and then 90 seconds later bounce up to go look at a picture or a plant or play with the dog, that act of having sat down before I get up to continue warm up changes the dynamic in the house. If they try and hijack your demo, because what do they want? They want the price and they want you to leave. If they try and hijack your demo, and this is what they do, especially on bathrooms or windows, because they want a price. They know you got to look at the windows in the bathrooms to give them a price. They'll say, come on, bathrooms this way, right as you walk in the door. Come on, let's look at the windows. Learn this word track. Hey, John, I can save us a lot of time if I can ask you a couple of questions first. Where can we sit down real quick? Hey, Mary, I can save us a bunch of time if I can ask you a couple of questions first. Where can we sit down real quick? Hey, Bob, I can save us a lot of time if I can ask you a couple of questions first. Where can we sit down real quick? Why would they ever say no to that? Save time real quick? They would never say no. And yet it lets me not get hijacked and get seated and stick with my process one after the other. Now, when you get into warm-up forms, family. Do they have siblings? Do they have grown children or young children? Are the grown children scattered to the wind or live close? Are their mom and dad still alive? Occupation. What do they do? Do they like it? Do they supervise people? Do they live to work or work to live? I love what I do for a living. Some people go to work to do the thing they love and can't stand their job. Who is the person in front of you? How long have they done this job? Are they going to retire from this company or are they going to go somewhere else? Recreation. What do they do for fun? They ride motorcycles. They got a boat. Do they go camping? Is their kid in a travel sports league and the family packs up every weekend and goes around and that's what they do as a family? What is their recreation? What motivates them? Are they close to retirement? Are they just getting started in the work world and they want to buy, a newer house, or they want to get an RV, or they're getting ready to have kids? What is their motivation? And then the S tells you that when the warm-up's over, you're in the survey. The S is for the survey. The warm-up, the warm-up is not about you talking about you. It is about learning about them. The only real thing that you should talk about you is any common ground you find. If I find out somebody's in the military, I'm going to share the fact that I was in the Virginia Army National Guard, honorably discharged after 4.5 years as a combat engineer, 12 Bravo, and I did my basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Because they get all that. Anybody else, I might just mention I served in the military, and I don't give them the details. If I talk to somebody that was a farmer, I'm going to share the fact that my grandparents on my mother's side were horse and buggy Amish in Pennsylvania, and they had a 300-head dairy farm. And I spent every summer on that farm until I got to be 16, got a driver's license, and had better things to do with my summer. Ha, ha, ha. Because he likes the fact that I come from a farming background. Anybody else? I might find a way to weave in the fact that my grandparents are Amish, because that's kind of curious. But I'm not giving them all the rest of it. It's not about me. It's about them. Learn to have good warm-up conversations. If I walk in a house and they've got a great big plant in the corner, I can have a 10-minute conversation about that plant. Now remember, I grew up on a farm, lots of gardens. I know a little something about plants. But it's not about me showing them that I know about plants. I'll walk up and go, my gosh, what is that thing, 7 feet tall? So how long have y'all had this? I know y'all didn't buy it 7 feet tall. How tall was it when you got it? Oh, a little thing, 7 years ago. Wow. Now, do y'all still take it outside, like in the summer, or is it so big it just stays here year round? Or do y'all drag it back in based on the seasons? Okay, I got you. Well, I know you didn't have it in this great big pot 7 years ago. How many times have you had to repot this plant over 7 years? Wow. So tell me, how do you know when it's time to repot a plant? Now, I know how to tell when it's time to repot a plant. But it's not me showing them that I know something. It's about me getting them to talk about what is probably almost like a pet or a child or a family member to them because it's been here 7 years. Get them to talk about it. Let them teach you something, and that's how you bond. If you walk in a home and they've got that Army flag and that triangle wooden case with the glass front on the mantle, we know what that represents. That was either a military or a fire or first responders who either died in service or retired and then died as an old person, and they're being honored for the service they had. Walk over to that and go, who's this person represent? What's their story? That person means something to them. They got the flag on the mantle. Learn about it. Show that they're talking about that person is going to make them feel special. They want to honor that person. Telling that person's story is a way that they honor that person. Ask them that story. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I have this statement over here on the wall. It says, in order to become the 1%, you must do what the other 99% don't. Don't be the schmoozy 99% salesperson who wants to be slick. I am the 1%. I am a super straightforward, honest, and ethical person with genuine curiosity, really excited to meet somebody new, and I'll tell it like it is because that's the way I grew up. I'm 1%. If there's something interesting in the house, I'll ask them what it is. I don't know. Oh, better not ask about that. That might be an uncomfortable moment. Hell no, I'm asking them about it. That's what real life and real bonding is about. So learn to get into your warm-up. Learn to dig into the warm-up. Do not talk business in the warm-up. Don't talk product. Don't start asking them what they want to do or what you're there for. Don't tell them about your company. Don't go look at it. Don't talk price. Don't talk anything business when you're in the warm-up. Let me say it again. No other steps and no business to talk about when you're in the warm-up. Now, if you get a guy pushing you, hey, we need to get this going, it happens. Remember, this is a fluid thing. You might have to jump around a little bit in the suspect phase. You're allowed to do that. Learn to flip that old style taximeter window down. If you can't get warm up all in that 20 to 40 minutes, learn to gather at 5-10 minutes at a time. Learn for that sidetrack when the conversation allows you to start talking about something, and then that'll lever off into a little bit more warm up. Where you see they got a beautiful deck off their sliding patio door when you're coming back from inspection. You go, oh my God, what a beautiful view. And you open the door and walk out on their deck. You don't even ask. And they're going to follow you out. And you talk about the wildlife and how beautiful it is and how they like their neighbors. Look for opportunities to continue the warm-up throughout the demo. Again, look for opportunities to continue the warm-up throughout the demo. Time investment is the most important thing of these three for demoing. Questions, time investment, and enthusiasm. These three things are super important when it comes to your demo. The three most important things there are. Later on, as we get into the other steps, we'll talk about the tool of questions. But when you talk about time investment and enthusiasm, time investment is a single meter that tells you how well you're doing. If I get a 30 or 40 minute warm up with someone and then I make the decision to move on to business, hear me again. If somebody starts getting antsy after 30, 40 minutes and I literally see them getting ready to say to me to move me on to business, like, well, let's get on with it, or don't you need to look, or what do you got? I'll say it first. I'll say, well, guess I better get to work here and do something productive. Just something like that. So I'm the one moving it. Little subtle control thing. You got to look for those little things. But time investment is critical. We're going to talk about how important time investment is and some time stamps to follow. And we're also going to talk about enthusiasm as well when we get into the next video. But I want to wind this one up. Warm up is about them, not about you. I'll ask a new sales rep that goes out and they'll call me afterwards for what we call a lead recap. And one of my common questions is, tell me the most interesting thing you learned about the person you just met. Oh, he was in the military. Really? What branch? Where did he go to basic training? How long did he serve? What was his final rank? Was he ever deployed overseas? What was his favorite place of deployment overseas? What place did he least like overseas? What made him decide to finally get out? How does his wife and kids deal with the military? You should know the answer to all those questions about someone. If they have siblings, where they live, if their parents are alive, if their children live close or far away, do they have grandchildren? That's what a warm-up is. And if you can't answer those type of questions, your warm-up sucks and you won't close. You're on your way to failure. Got to have curiosity. Got to have that genuine curiosity and excitement about meeting a new person. If you like the idea of meeting new and different people, and some of them are weird, and some of them are hoarders, and some of them, but they all have something to learn, and you can embrace that and enjoy that journey, there is literally millions of dollars for you to be made in this business. And if you struggle to meet people and you can't get excited about new faces, it's going to be a tough road, baby. You got to have curiosity. You got to love meeting new people, and you got to enjoy the journey of the thing this person can teach you or show you that you didn't know, no matter who they are. That's what a warm-up is. Thank you.